Well, welcome to another exciting episode of Light Vision Art Q&A. I am your humble host, Alfonso Ashworth. We got a great show lined up for you today. We're going to be thinking outside the box. We got some subjects in line for that. Christopher Hamrick is going to be on in just a little while talking about infrared. Jeff Coleman, when he comes in, we're going to talk about neutral density filters. He wants to show some images on neutral density filters. If we can get Jeff in the show today. Claudia, one of our regulars, she is out on a shoot. We wish her well today. I hope that she's going to do okay out there. But in any case, we are excited about the show. If you want to, if you are listening in or viewing in or whatever way that you're getting on the show, there's Jeff. Welcome to the show, Jeff. We'll get you in just a second. Of course, go ahead and add him to the broadcast, but we'll bring you on in just a minute, Jeff, talk about those neutral density filters. If you are viewing the show, either live or maybe on another replay, you can always contact us through the show through our email at lightvisionartqa. Of course, lightvisionart@gmail.com. If you are viewing the show as I speak, you can join us here on the phone number. I guess I better make that phone number more visible. It looks like the color is not what it should be, but let's get that up in just a minute. See if we can get a darker color. There we go. We're going to get you on at 615-547-3355. That number again is 615-547-3355. Of course, if you want to email me, you can do so at livevisionart@gmail.com. As I said, I'm Alfonso Ashworth. We do this show every weekend or every Saturday morning from 10 to 11. I had a little bit of excitement this morning. I come in and one of my computers, Christopher, one of my computers was not acting properly. So I had to get Avast or one of those email servers or whatever they call them to clean up the system. It's highway robbery. I got a whole theory. I think they break your system so they can come back later and fix it for you. That's just my conspiracy theorist mind at work. Of course, let's say hello to Jeff and Christopher. Hey, hello, guys. Go ahead and click yourself. Hello, Jeff. How you
Good
doing?
morning.
Good morning, sir. How you doing today?
I'm doing fine.
Well, I'm glad. Of course, you still do. Are you over your cold or are your
Yeah, I think I'm finally got over it. Took a
yeah,
while
yeah, I think I got a little bit.
after I spread it around to the world.
Yeah, I may have gotten it online last week from you. It may have somehow or another come through the computer. The FBI is warning everyone to watch your computers. If you have a camera on your computer, on your laptop or computer, you should cover it up with tape if you don't want to be seen by the outside world. So there is no security these days. Let's say quick hello to Christopher. Hey, big guy, how's it going?
Oh man, it's early. You morning people.
Yeah, we morning people. I don't know how many people I could get if I did a midnight show, but of course it's hard to get viewers no matter which time you come on nowadays. But thank you for getting up early. You're gonna be talking to us about some infrared in just a minute, and of course you guys go ahead and mute. I'll bring you guys back on in just a little bit. Of course, um, we're talking about thinking outside the box today. We talk about the box with the hole in it, the camera being the box with the hole in it. And a lot of people that I know that know me, if they hear me say that, they know exactly what I'm talking about. And most photographers that have been around a while will get it, the box with the hole in it concept. But we're going to talk about today thinking outside the box. But before we do, let's do just a little bit of advertising. Of course, you're going to go to our website. If you want to join a motley crew of photographers and get with them, we get together once a month first Mondays of the month at Wilson County Photography Guild. We meet at Pinturo's in Lebanon, Tennessee at 6:30. You can come, you can get some food. We're on West Main Street. And then we alternate to Mount Juliet every other month. So then you can go to what we call the corner pub between the lakes. But regardless of where we meet, we have fun. We look at photographs. We talk about photography. There'll be a lot of people there with a lot of knowledge. If you want to join us at either one of those locations, 6:30s, of course, the first Monday of the month. Next month, we're going to be meeting in Mount Juliet. So if you're in the Mount Juliet, Tennessee area, Lebanon, Tennessee area, or Nashville, Murfreesboro, Gallatin, or the surrounding areas, come and meet us at the corner pub at 6:30 p.m. Get you some food, have some fun. If you want to connect with me, you can find me on my website at Light Vision Art. Of course, you can go there and find out all sorts of information. There's information about everything you can think of in terms of photography, all the way to the point of different links that I provide, the legal information that's there about your rights as a photographer, on and on and on. So go there and check it out. And of course, we always have our show Saturday mornings, Light Vision Art Q&A. You can find me here with my guests, with my panelists. We normally have on 2 to 3 panelists, experts in their areas that they like to talk about, that I call them very knowledgeable individuals, and they'll give you lots of information. Of course, we always talk about being in the dark room. So dark room in use is something we always talk about on the show. If you're interested in politics, religion, or any other topics that are going on in the world today, find me at Line Chasers Radio with Lonnie Poindexter. We'll get you blood pumping, get you some knowledge in that field. And we have a 2-hour show weekly. I'm on as his special guest on Wednesdays. So if you want to hear more from me, check me out there at urbanfamilytalk.com. And of course, as I say before, knowledge is king. You have to get knowledge. If you don't have knowledge, you are ignorant. So go to Light Vision Art, the Educated Eye. Join us in the classroom. The fall winter class just started on Tuesday. The bright-eyed students, Jeff, their eyes are wide open. They're ready to learn. Of course, it's always an adventure when you're in the classroom with me. So you get to be with me for 2 hours every week, plus assignments at Light Vision Art, the Educated Eye. And I would be remiss if I did not advertise for my friends at We Be Lenses. Jim and Marion Young at We Be Lenses. They will get you your Canon lenses, rent you those lenses at a reasonable rate, and get them to you quickly. So let's get started today on the show. Thinking outside the box can be sort of have a little bit of vague terminology, but it always comes back to the point of, the photography starts with the person, not the camera. Your photography starts with you long before you push that shutter release button, long before you buy that expensive lens that you want to get. You have to learn to develop the idea that photography is writing or painting with light. If you cannot grab onto that concept, it may be a little bit more difficult for you. Well, what you'll do what a lot of us did, you'll be chasing your own tail. You'll be chasing equipment, you'll be chasing technology, you will be chasing other people, you'll chase other photographers around, never realizing really that the art starts with you. Guys, go ahead and click off your mutes and let's sort of talk about some things in that area. And of course, if you are viewing or want to view, or you have a question or comment, you can come and talk to us and be a part of the show. Christopher, thinking outside the box, my friend, what does that normally mean when you think about that subject?
It means doing something that I guess is, really not what anybody else is doing, trying to figure out how to use the equipment and something a little bit different than, click, okay, I got this picture.
Right. Right. And thinking out, when I say think outside the box, so of course there's many boxes out there that you can invest in. Canon, Nikon, at one time other names that were out there that are no longer out there, like Minolta. But you have Pentax and Sony. You have all these other brands that are coming in that are taking the lead with the box with the hole in it. And I'm impressed with a lot of those things. I'm impressed with some of the new technology, like anybody else, with the smartphone devices, the tablets, the attachments that you can now add to those devices to sort of expand your skill set. But normally, people never think about themselves as the key element in photography. They are the element of the creativity part. Your camera equipment can only do so much when it comes to creativity. Now of course you can do all these things with your apps and all that kind of stuff. But of course, when you go in and start, Chris, when you start thinking of a shot, when you start trying to outline and develop an idea for a shot, what is the first thing that you personally do as the photographer on your own personal level?
I try to figure out something that is going to make people look at that image and try to figure out how I did it.
Right. That's a good point, because you have to make people ask questions. You want them to ask questions. And part of that is what you just said, trying to think of something that intrigues them. Then, of course, next you do the other things that you have to do. What about you, Jeff? When you start, because you like to do a lot of stuff outside and outdoors, and we talked about this before about preparing for all of that. But how do you prepare yourself mentally? You, the photographer, you, the artist, as far as way you think of things.
I probably do a lot of different things, but sometimes it's just walking into somebody else's shop that will just intrigue you to look at somebody else's photo,
Right.
not to copy it, but it may just it brings on creativity in your own mind.
Right.
But when you get out on a site, you've got to figure it out for yourself when you get out on site. And usually, you've got to figure out, how can I take somebody on a journey and like you say, grab their interest.
Right. And that's a good way to put it. Taking them on a journey is a good way to phrase that. Of course, I'm a writer. I like to write. Uh, I do articles, I do blogs, I do novels, I do pretty much. I'm on social media, and I try to write things to make people want to take action. I'm an action person, and normally when I'm talking about photography, it's more so I'm talking about the things that people lack in their own personal habits. You know, photographers are generally lazy people. You know, generally they are. I mean, most of them, they want to go and do something, or they got an idea, but they'll think of every excuse in the world to not do it. It's too cloudy, it's too sunny, it's too rainy, it's too wet, it's too cold, all those kinds. So mentally, you have to get yourself. I always think of it this way, Christopher. You should be getting your camera out when everyone else is putting theirs away. What about that?
I think so. I mean, I just recently, the article of the guy that heard the plane go into the tower, and he grabbed all his gear and ran out there and tried to find the perfect angle and all that kind of stuff. And then just happened that he was able to use a medium format camera to photograph the second plane hitting. So there was foresight, there was composition, there was thought. not knowing that that was actually going to take place, but thought that he was just going to get the one building up in smoke, and it ended up on Time magazine.
Right.
So there's a lot of thought that goes into trying to come up with a composition that's going to say something. And I know that's something that one of my instructors told me when I first started was, she thought my photography was decent, you know, at an amateur level, but she says, you got to learn to say something.
Right. Yeah. Message. You got to have a message. And that's another thing. It's like when I'm doing my novels, if I just finished writing a book, and it's going to be available soon for, we're going to first just put it on for download because it's targeting a certain audience. It's called The Machine, Who's Counting Your Votes. And what I try to do, I don't try to tell people whether they should or should not vote, but they have to seek the knowledge for themselves to come up with the truth of what's really happening in the world around you today. So in photography, your photography should have a clear message. It should, your image should have a clear message. And part of that is how you think. It's really boils down to how you think, how you perceive the world around you, and how you perceive your craft. If you have a message that's not clear, no matter how good your exposures are, no matter how good of the equipment that you are using, the box with the hole in it, that expensive lens, all the bells and whistles, if your message is not clear, then people are just not going to get it. And I think that's what thinking outside the box is about. Is part of that is how do you think, and how do you perceive your art, and how you want other people to see that. What about you, Jeff? What say you, sir?
No, I agree. I mean, I mean, everybody is not going to be on the same wavelength you are, and it's, I mean, you really can't. I mean, you got to take criticism with, I guess, a learning curve, but
Right.
you can't. If somebody criticizes you, you got to kind of blow it off, and you know, you may have your own ideas, and they just don't see it. So there's a lot of people just don't get art. I mean,
Right. And it may take more than one shot at it, so to speak, if you can. It may be something you have to revisit more than once. And you brought up a very good point about criticism. That's another thing that's outside the box. I mean, you have to be willing to accept criticism. Like I was saying with being a writer, the book that I've got coming out not too long from now called Lost Memories, it's been critiqued more times than I care to take a stick at. But I'm gonna be honest with you. Now that it's in the final stages, I am so glad that I let people critique it. And I let people critique it that are hardcore critics. I mean, they don't give you no fluff. They're not going to give you any sugar coated, you know, candy canes and all that kind of stuff.
Yep.
They're just going to tell you what they read, and then they're going to give you their thoughts on it. And I'm glad I did, because it's probably going to be one of the best books that I've written so far in terms of the writing. But Christopher, you are of course you attended school on this subject. You have some college courses and things like that under your belt. How much does that play into shaping the artist in terms of education? Is it something that we should emphasize more, or is it something we should kind of just take with a grain of salt?
I think it's something that everybody actually should do. I mean, maybe not what I did as far as university level, but actually, you know, be humble enough to sit in front of some people and learn something, because there's a lot out there that a lot of photographers, they get a sense of pride, like I'm doing a pretty good job, and they may be doing a pretty good job, but a lot of them are winging it. Like if you really ask them to do something technical, they don't know. And I'm a part of a group where lately, people are starting to discover calibrating their devices.
Right.
So it's like this, a few things like that you would not really encounter on a regular, just day to day, picking up a nice camera, stuff like that. It's not like Best Buy sells, the i1 profiler and the calibration grids and stuff like that. And that's the technical side of it. The other side of it is being exposed to the history of photography and actual, even contemporary photographers and what they're doing. What is it that made Ansel Adams great, or Alfred Stieglitz, or any of these photographers that we like to mimic? People know Ansel Adams. You can get posters at Walmart, but what is it that he did that he contributed to photography? And so there's a lot of people out there. Even if I don't like what they do, like Sally Mann, she's right on the edge of child pornography, but I respect her because here she is with a large format camera, and she's published. People know her name, and I know what it is that she's done. So yeah, I think education's just like anything else. It's funny because I kept telling people, like I'll explain, like, you did this wrong or whatever from a technical objective standpoint, and they'll say, well, that's a stylistic choice.
Right.
And I don't see, plumbers being able to say, well, I wanted the hot water on the right. It was a stylistic choice.
Right.
Living with my friend over the past 3 months, and that was actually how his house was plumbed.
Yeah.
So I had to find another thing to say.
Well, you make a great point on the education. And as you just said, it does not have to be university degree, doctorate, and, all those kind of things. It could be some courses that are you with a workshop. You could get with a workshop. You can get with other photographers that are meeting, like the guild meetings that we have. You can get in my class. It's really more of a beginner's class in a lot of ways. It takes you into different areas, but it's really to get you started on a better foundation. Most of the time, people don't get started right. Or it can be even to a degree to where you work for another photographer. That's something most people don't think about. It's like becoming a student of another photographer, and being like an understudy, or being mentored, or being put into that program and sort of wait in line. What do you think, Jeff? I know that you did some work years ago in this area, so you have some other experiences in photography in the business part. Am I correct in terms of what you used to do at one time?
Oh, I've got background in printing. I didn't do it for a living. I've just done it for the school.
Okay.
I've done a lot of. We had a fairly large dark room, and with a huge camera, and that's where I got exposed to that portion. But I got exposed to color photography a little bit with the gentleman that used to own our plant, and he had a hobby, and he had money, so he was able to buy things and stick in his house that
other people couldn't.
So
Well, I tell you what, let's get into some of the specifics that we wanted to cover as well. Christopher, you wanted to talk a little bit something about infrared, and maybe even show some of your work with that. So what do you have for us today with the infrared?
All right, let's see if I can get my screen here shared. It's actually, while we were talking, trying to find something that I could. I know, stop. Let's just get this big here. So yeah. So I stumbled on this back in 2009. I was working on a project, and what I did was our cameras are sensitive to infrared, and so I removed the actual filter that blocks the infrared light, and then I put something in it to block the visible light. And what came was this surrealistic looking world. And so this was actually the prototype picture that I came up with.
Right.
but it actually merged into, well, that's not what I want to do. Let me try that again. All right,
There we go.
So this is some of my latest work with a camera that I have converted. It's just a 5 megapixel camera. And what I do is I bring the images in and I swap the red and the blue channel, except for that one, that's a film image. But I swap the red and the blue channel and then maybe do a couple other tweaks. But what you get is plants don't use infrared light. So they reflect all of it, just like they don't use green light. So they actually reflect that back. And then, of course, the blue is just a false color blue that's from swapping the red and the blue channel.
Mm-hmm.
And I've done this to probably about a dozen cameras. And I mean, it's certainly something out of the box that you wouldn't think to do with a camera. And it's increasing in popularity because it was actually very difficult to do in the film days. And that's probably one of the reasons that I did it. But yeah, just a few other images here just to kind of give you an idea.
There we go.
Let me try that again. So let me full screen size that. So here's the actual filter that I'm removing from this particular camera. When you actually look at your camera, you'll be able to see the, it's just got this aqua greenish looking with like a red kind of reflection to it. And what I was doing was putting the 3.5-inch diskettes, with the actual medium that it saves the data. You know, it's hard to see through it. It blocks visible light, and I was putting that in front of it. Or C41 processed film, the section that was completely exposed to light, that is now almost black. Infrared passes right through that, and so I would take a camera that once did this, and then now with and this is without any filtration whatsoever, this is what it looks like when they don't block the infrared light. And then I came up with the stuff that you saw there.
Right.
Another feature of infrared is that the wavelength is longer, and so it is actually underneath my shirt here. I've got a bill, some money underneath my shirt.
Mm-hmm.
And in infrared, you're almost able to see right through it.
Wow. That's pretty cool.
Yeah, just block, and that was something that people were using a while back to go out to beaches and be creepy. But and here's another on the back of our actual money. There's sections on there that do not reflect visible light,
right,
or infrared light. And so there's these bars here that just completely, it looks completely blank on an infrared camera. So. Yeah, I mean, that's how I stumbled into it. I was using it to detect camouflage. And because in the world of camouflage, if you paint a truck to look like grass in the visible spectrum, you know, it's hard to see it. But in infrared, that truck shows up black. All the grass shows up white. So it's like, there they are. And it's something that they were doing during World War II to detect the enemy, but it never really caught on.
Right. Let me ask you this, Christopher. What's the cost of converting one of your cameras to shoot in infrared in the method that you're using? What's the cost?
Really not anything at all, because I was a technician. I used to repair to the component level electronics. And so for me to get into a camera and take it apart and replace the filter, it's not a big deal. But if you did this to like, you know, a newer camera that you want, like let's say you've got a Nikon D90 or maybe even something newer, the Sony A series camera, something like that, or you can send them in. They'll it cost you about $500 to convert it the way that you want, and they've got a clean room so that they can, you know, take it apart in a dust-free environment and put it back together, and you don't have to worry about that. And so that would be the way that I would go if I was really going to start doing this for more than just a hobby.
Right. But right now you can just take an older camera and do this, and it's not that risky.
Right.
like you said, a 5 megapixel, 8 megapixel camera that you can convert just as a hobby, as you're saying.
Yeah, and a lot of them will convert. Some of them won't. It depends on their focal length, because you definitely have to make sure maybe it's got a macro setting in it, because the focus on infrared is different than it is for visible light.
Yes, we know that by using the older cameras, the older lenses used to have an infrared mark that you'd had to dial it in to shoot the infrared. You had like a little dot on your lens that was your infrared mark if you was going to shoot infrared film. Yeah,
absolutely. So yeah, it's one of those things that you can get into, and how do you make a small fortune with photography? You spend a big fortune.
There you go. That's it. And of course, I really appreciate that. If anybody listening and they want to learn this, of course, you can contact me and I'll get you in touch with Christopher, or if he wants to tell his website. I need to put his website on my regular page. I'll do that, Christopher. At some point, I'm going to put your website on so I can just bring it up from this side. Or if you want to bring it up and show people how to get to your website or get to you, you can do that as well. Jeff, what are you talking about today, big guy?
I got a note from Claudia and says, "Hey, I'm in trouble. I can't get any ND filter pictures, and blah, 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 blah." So,
right.
I'm kind of in the same boat she is on this new variable ND filter. I've tried it, and I haven't. I mean, there's a lot to learn with one of them. First of all, you buy them things you buy a larger one than you need and step it down to your lens, and my 24 millimeter was still vignetting badly with a UV filter still on it, and trying to screw right on top of that. It was really giving me some really funky things. So anyway, if I take that off, it does a lot better. It moves that in closer, but I think if I bought a little larger unit, it would have been better. I bought a 77 millimeter, and my lens is 72 millimeters, so it.
Right. But, explain to a novice or someone that's not familiar with it, what is a neutral density filter?
It's basically sunglasses for your camera, in layman's terms, I guess you would say. It allows you to shoot slower speeds in lighted, sunlight or well lighted situations, where normally if you slow it down that much to stop or to smooth out what I say call the glassy look of water and things like that, you can't really do it real easy without overexposing your picture. So.
Right. And a lot of photographers use the neutral density filters for super long exposure times. So there's a topic out there called year-long exposures. And you may want to look some of that up as in the audience, but look up year-long exposures in photography, and you'll see some pretty fascinating images that where photographers have left their shutters open for 1 year, just lock it in, leave it open, come back a year later and see what they have on that frame. And it's one frame at a time. So you got to be very patient.
Yeah. But it's just another way of being creative.
Yeah.
Another tool in the toolbox. So
what you're showing, or what you have, is something they call a variable neutral density filter. So what makes it different than just an average everyday neutral density filter?
I've actually got two. I bought a cheap set about 2 years ago just to play with. Plastic, give you a really funky color. Really bad about any angle light hazing it over.
Right.
So I bought this a new one this year, and I debated whether to buy a variable or not, and just the variable gives you the ability to have that multiple filters there basically without having to keep sliding in and out.
Right. Feel different.
So,
You,
but you can kind of dial it in to where to condition that you're at or you're in. So,
do you have a filter handy? Do you
yeah.
have? Yeah. So that's what it's sort of.
If it's right now, it doesn't have any light blocking, and as you turn it,
Oh, okay.
it starts getting darker. I think this camera is going to adjust to.
I'll try to adjust. Yeah, but I can see what difference it would make in terms of So that's completely locked down.
Yeah.
What we call locked down on the exposure. Basically, the aperture would be almost always all the way shut.
Yeah, and there's a lot of. I read a lot before I bought it, and there's a lot of people don't like neutral density filters or the variable filters because they do. If you get to a certain point in them, they give you an Xing. You get a point where you get cross hatches and things like that, and you just got to be careful about how far you turn it.
Is that due to the digital? What digital does, or would you also see that no matter what medium? Is that
I think it's just you're getting to the point where you're cross the way it filters and creates the darkness. I think you're getting beyond its design, I guess. Now it may be something else going on, beyond me anyways.
Well, I'll tell you what, let's look at some of your images that you had, that you used. Let's look at this waterfall. Explain this shot.
Yeah, that one was 2 years ago. That's called Mouse Creek up in the mountains. And this one is taken with that old cheap, like $15 or so set of neutral density filters. In this case, it's a F11 and like a 4-second exposure.
In sunlight.
Yeah, it's fairly light there in that area. But I didn't have any light was from the side, and I think it was cloudy that day too, but I didn't have any direct or any angle light coming into the lens, so it worked fairly well with them cheap filters.
Right. Okay, let's look at the next shot here. This is another perspective. Is this the same day?
Same trip, a couple of days later. F22 6-second exposure. Probably this one could pretty close to be done without, if it wasn't so bright. Anyways, it was fairly bright that day. You can almost do this by just closing down, your aperture. But this just another. Like I say, I was getting a little bit of hazing in this, a little grayish. I've had to adjust this one out. So, but
let me ask you, have you heard of a split neutral density filter?
Yes, this old set has that, where you can actually load the top and the bottom. I've done that. Some of my moon shots that I've taken out over the water at night, I have to block the top because the moon is so intense, I guess you would say.
Right.
And then to collect that on the water, you either do that or you cover up half of it, and you can almost. It just depends on how you want to do the shot.
Yeah, there's other tricks that you can do,
Yeah.
and it would take me a while to explain them. But there's all sorts of tricks that you can do to dodge and burn during the exposure, during the shot itself. And this is one more that you're showing here. That is that you sent me. Now explain this shot. And
that one was last night, sunset.
Okay.
I ran out. This one is taken with the new variable.
Okay.
Neutral density filter. To F10. That was a 25-second exposure.
Wow.
So it's getting on. I had the filter closed down quite a bit on it. So it's
right. And you can see, of course, how smooth the water almost looks almost like it's frozen. Yeah.
Right. It gives you that really glassy look.
Yeah.
You get a lot of reflection in the water.
Right.
But again, it's just another tool to give you something to create things with.
Right.
I'm interested in see what Claudia comes up with.
Yeah, we'll see. We'll get her in. Comes up. Hey, Christopher, what do you think about those neutral density shots there that Jeff was showing, and in terms of using a neutral density filter?
I certainly think there's. I mean, he's doing what. I had a woman a few months ago asked me. She saw a waterfall picture, and it was the same cottony flowing look, and she goes, "What? Why does everybody do it that way?" And I was like, I guess it's just kind of the standard. Like that's not how we really see it. But yeah, that kind of got us into talking about photography. But yeah, I mean, it's one of those things that's how we kind of perceive and want to see, like flowing water and whatnot, to just kind of give it a look that is more surrealistic, more artistic.
Right. What about people, using these shots for long exposures, like in traffic shots, like in cities and cityscapes, where you maybe have one person sitting, but the other people are moving, the traffic is moving? I think a neutral density filter would come in very good hands, become handy in a shot like that, where you need a longer exposure time. Like you need seconds instead of fractions of seconds. You need 4 seconds, 5 seconds. Neutral density filters could be useful in those type of shots as well. What you showing us, Chris?
This was not with a neutral density filter, but same concept. This is probably, I think they were 2-3 minute long exposures. I just put my tripod in the back of my car. I measured the light off of my dashboard to make sure that it was properly exposed, and I drove around Lebanon. I did this a few times when I hit 100,000 miles.
Right. Wow. That's another example of timed exposures. And I think a neutral density filter could be useful in the daytime on something like that.
There's a lot of model shots done like that when they're out on the beach.
Right.
High intense light.
Yeah. And they use neutral density filters to bring that exposure under check. So neutral density filters, we really highly recommend that you put one of these in your bag, whether it's a variable neutral density filter, as Jeff was showing us, that Claudia introduced to us last week, or whether it's a split neutral density filter. Now, split neutral density filters normally come with a holder, or Jeff may have one to show us. They're not cheap, I can tell you that, if you get the real deal.
Yeah, they're expensive, but you get what you pay for in glass.
Yeah.
Again, that's why I bought cheap, and then this one is a split.
That's a split neutral density. And of course, it's great for sunsets and sunrises and waterfalls, landscapes. But as Jeff just said, it's also good if you're out on the beach, shooting a model, or you're out on the beach just getting a certain shot that you're trying to work with, and you need more time. Time is the element. Time is the killer or the benefactor. You either need more of it or you need less of it. Sometimes you need more time. You need more time than what you can get out of your aperture. And another thought, what if you want depth of field to be at a wider aperture?
Yep.
You may want a situation where you need a aperture at 4.5 or 2.8. Well, the only way to control that is with neutral density filters. Now, if we were talking video, most high-end video cameras come with built-in neutral density filters in them. So you can just dial in what you want for neutral density. But photography, I don't know why. Of course, I think it would just add to more cost if they were to build this into your cameras. But don't be surprised if that starts being the next thing they add. Ain't the right, Christopher? They're always thinking of new things to add.
I'd be shocked if they ever do. I mean, I think more or less if I guess the point and shoot cameras seem to be dying because either you have your phone or you have a professional style camera, and the idea of the professional is that you're able to put any lens and then any things on there that you want.
Right.
So it's just going to come down to learning essentially as a photographer, what do the brushes do that I have at my disposal? What does shutter speed? What does aperture do? And yeah, it's letting people use those different parts of the camera to express what it is that they're thinking as far as what do I want to say to the world, essentially. So yeah, that's I mean, and it's and I know we've talked about infrared and neutral density and stuff like that, but I mean it's I mean you don't even have to go that far as to there's so many other creative things that you can do with
multiple exposures. Yeah.
Where this is just a simple photo stitch that I was able to it was an assignment that I had. It was a selfie, and I just set the camera up and moved it and moved myself and then put it all together in post.
Right.
This image right here was originally shot on film.
Right, I remember.
And I mean, the people watching me in the next driveway over couldn't figure out what I was doing, and they saw the extension cord. So, I mean, it was one of those things that people, it's one of those trick light bulbs. I'm like, no, that's the sunset, and that's how you get the shadow there. And so, yeah, I personally enjoy it when I can get people to look at an image and then kind of do a double take and realize, okay, something is going, especially with the infrared, because they think, oh, that's just snow. Wait a minute, that's not snow. Those are leaves. And then it's like, okay, how in the world did he do this? Or anything that I do with my electronics background. I got one more here real fast that I just had to do with a fluorescent light bulb.
Mm-hmm.
I have to share the screen real fast. And so, and I wanted to do this one on film as well, and but this was actually more of a test shot just to see if I could get it done. And that fluorescent light bulb is really there above my head. It's really lit, and it's lit with a high voltage power supply that you can actually see on that kind of middle step there.
Yeah, I see.
Little black box. And there's a PVC tube that runs off to the side, and it's glued to the back of that bulb, and that bulb has two wires running to either end. And because it was 5,000 volts, it didn't have to be. It just had to touch the cap there, and so it was glowing, and I was able to get underneath it. And I was limited on the models that I had at the time, so I had to use this ugly bastard
to be in your shot. Well, I tell you what, and speaking of what we're saying, of course, doing what you're talking about doing, don't do this at home with high voltage anything if you don't know what you're doing.
Yeah, absolutely. These are shots that if you don't know how to handle what's going on, I could easily kill myself. I mean,
right.
And that's not the only time that I've used that high voltage power supply to get the shot that I wanted.
Right. But I was talking about devices. Now, these lenses here, this lens here has a built-in holder where you can take it out and put in filters. So some of your high-end lenses will let you, put a filter in the lens itself. So you can put neutral density filters in this lens here. So it depends on how, like you said earlier, Chris, it depends on how much money you want to spend.
Yeah, several of the there's a couple of adapters out on the market now for the where everybody's adapting different lenses to Sony, and that adapter has an ND filter or whatever filters you want to stick in it, and then they've got one that's electronic that you actually just dial in. I don't know exactly how that works,
but that's what I'm talking about. I think we're going in that direction. Now, of course, this is an old lens. This one here, it's not even autofocus, but you can only imagine having to buy a neutral density filter.
Yeah,
UV filter on it, but you can imagine having to spend, $400 or $500 for an ND filter for this thing. So it'd be hard to convince people to do that on an everyday shooting. Okay, guys, take a couple of minutes and kind of wrap up your thoughts on what we're talking about, thinking outside the box. Jeff, of course, you were talking about shots that you've done with the ND filter or neutral density filter. But if you got any final things that you want to add to it, go ahead. Take a couple of minutes and do it, big guy.
No, just if you're thinking about buying one, buy one large enough. I mean, they're expensive if you get a good one. If you're just going to play with them, just buy something cheap, play with it for a while, and kind of like what I did.
Yeah, how much do you spend? How much can you spend on an average neutral density?
I mean, the cheap one, I bought the whole set with the adapter and plastic. They're plastic, but I think I paid $15 or something. I don't know. It wasn't much, 15 to 20, which is cheap. But it was, it is junk, but it doesn't make any difference if it's junk or not, if you can be creative with it. So, if you can get your thoughts around it and use it, and the Tiffin that I bought, I think it's $140 or something like that.
Right.
And it's not near it's kind of hitting the middle of the road. It's not anywhere near the top of the line. So, again, I'm doing this for a hobby, not making money off of it.
Right. And but of course, I appreciate that you've invested your time and efforts to bring this knowledge to others. And of course, Claudia is probably going to bring some in next week that she's played around with and she's been trying out with her neutral density filter. Of course, my friend Christopher, any final thoughts, sir?
I go back to learn to say something with your photography. That's been the biggest challenge for me. And and be careful. Just simply, just not every right-hand turn is where you want to be. So
you go.
I don't know. I felt the need to share this, but yeah, learn to say something. Learn the what the camera's able to do, and don't be locked in to just the aperture, shutter speed, ISO. There are so many things. Those are just tools. Just like if you were a painter and you've got all these different brushes, and you don't need everything. You just what is it? What do you envision? And then go and do that. And that's taking that point where, from an amateur perspective, where I would go and I would see something pretty and photograph it, to actually coming up with an image and then working in the same maybe 3 square feet of my studio or something like that, where I'm building that image up. And that's where you want to get to, where you go from the magic of it all to making it magical for everybody else.
Right. That's very good, guys. I really appreciate it. Go ahead and throw yourselves on mute, and we'll come back and finish up. But as my panelists just said, think outside the box, be creative, say something with your shot, be willing to test some of the tools that you're going to need. Don't just go out and spend all that money until you sort of learn what you're doing with it. So there are more, there's less expensive ways to do this, as Jeff just said. Buy the cheap set first, try it out, see what it does, and then go out, and when you get ready, you go buy the more expensive products to do this with, because it does. The glass, plastic, cheap versus expensive, some things you cannot skimp on. And one of those things is, of course, are your lenses. You have to be willing to bite the bullet and buy the good lenses. Of course, one of the things that I sort of stress in class, and of course, if you want to be a guest on the show at some point or be a part of this show, it's easy. We'll get you on, let you say what you want to say. You may have some knowledge that we don't have, and you want to share that knowledge. Well, we'll appreciate that you would want to come on. So contact me, of course, at livevisionart@gmail.com, or you can call in during the show if you got something you want to say at 615-547-3355. Of course, this is a show that we try to share knowledge. We try to share information, whether that be in the classroom, whether that be in part of what we do in Light Vision Art Q&A. Of course, we have our show every Saturday morning from 10 to 11. And it's all part of a darkroom series that we do, talking about the darkroom. And of course, you can find me on other programs as well. But in the classroom, you get me at Light Vision Art, The Educated Eye. That'll get you in 16 weeks. We'll get you going, get you started, get you going on the right direction. Of course, you get to see my ugly mug. And if you do need high quality Canon lenses, go to weeblenses.com. It's been a great show. I really appreciate these guys coming out and being a part of the show. But like all things, they must come to an end. And of course, Light Vision Art is no different. We have other things that we do with our brand. We, of course, Custom Color Photo Lab is part of the major brand that we do. It's been in business since 1986. We've been in business 30 years, guys. And that's been a blessing because we've met a lot of really talented artists over the years. Some of these artists, man, they just naturals. They just pick up a box with a hole in it and they just take off and create. And that's what we like. We like for people to be creative, but at the same time, have fun while you're doing this. I mean, if it's something that's stressing you out and it's making you upset and you getting aggravated, take a step back. Lay the box with the hole in it down, step back away from it, sort of reset your thoughts, find out why you're really doing it. Are you doing it for money? Well, I got news for you. Ain't a lot of money in it, but it is a lot of fun. And you can meet a lot of people, and you may get a shot someday that may sell. Who knows, may make you a millionaire, but don't do it because of that. If you're doing it because of that, you're doing it for the wrong reason anyway. So we tell people, don't expect a gift, but become a gift. Become a gift to a student. Become a gift to a person that can no longer go out and enjoy photography. Go by and sit down and talk to them about it. That's always a pleasure for me, as Jeff just said, and as Christopher just said. Sometimes you meet people, strike up a conversation, find out that they're photography, and boom, it's off and running after that. But I want to thank you guys for coming on today. I really appreciate it. And of course, as always, God bless you. God bless America, and